Welcome to the Continuous Delivery Podcast. My name is Zarar.
I'm Cheesy.
And I'm Hino.
All right. And today we are gathered here today to talk about team sizes. More specifically, the impact of AI on team sizes. I think most of us have been used to the 2-pizza team, 8 developers, throw in a bunch of other people. You get to 10. If you're in a big corp, throw in a few more. You're up to 15. Throw in a few more people at the stand-up, you're up to 25. So that's how things sort of used to happen. But AI obviously has impacted certainly software development to a very, very large degree. I'd say more so than pretty much any other profession, I might even add. And I guess one of the questions that we have to sort of dig into is team sizes. Is the 2-pizza team still a thing? How do we rethink how to form teams with AI present? How do we think about sort of like long-term staffing, short-term POCs? Like, what are the assumptions that we have held so dear to us over the last 20 years that are now being questioned? We already know what's being questioned from a software development sort of programming standpoint, but in terms of kind of like organization, team sizes, team structure, how has that impacted? Cheesy, you said you wanted to go first, so the floor is yours.
To be honest, I think we're still figuring that out. I think as we have brought AI into the traditional Agile teams, we've found that things don't work as well, or should I say Agile doesn't work as well, or at least we run into a bunch of constraints. One constraint, for example, is if you have testers, well, they are absolutely unable to keep up with the new pace. Furthermore, they tend to add less and less value over time, and so that is a challenge. All of the folks who are on the front end trying to deliver requirements, trying to bring requirements into the team, again, that becomes yet again another constraint. There's no way that they can stay ahead. At least this has been my experience in working with the teams, and so we're trying to figure that out. I think there's another interesting aspect as well, which is how many developers do we need? And I think we're heading to a place where that doesn't matter. It's not going to be about how many developers. It's going to be about how many agents. You could have 4 developers, or you could have 1 developer running 4 agents, and potentially come very close to achieving the same thing. So I don't think we've figured this out yet. I think we're struggling a little bit. I think we're playing with different workflows. We're running into lots of constraints, lots of challenges, trying to figure those out, trying to understand, can we build some tools to help us through those? And I think that's kind of where we are. I don't know.
Yeah.
Over to you.
I think you're right that we haven't figured it out yet. I mean, Zara, you started with saying, how has it impacted? I don't think it has yet, but it definitely will. It's actually a good start. Your intro was quite on point when you said, when we were referring to the 2-pizza team idea. The 2-pizza team idea was an upper limit, was not a lower limit. It was an upper limit of how big a team can be in order to still go fast, in order to still have all the communication that you need to have to get something out of the door. And I think that's that upper limit is still there, but you don't need as many people anymore to Cheesy's point, to do exactly the same thing. Now, there is, however, I do see it a little bit different than Cheesy with regards to the different roles, like people who come up with requirements, people who do testing. I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to do the same roles, but they have this particular skill that they bring to a team, and they will have their role within a team. You're absolutely right. You won't need as many, but you might benefit from those skills depending on the team and depending on the work that you're doing to have within your small team. And then essentially what you're doing is you're leading a team of developers or creators or people who do the actual groundwork. But that oversight, the direction, that guidance, and so forth might still come from people who are specialized in product, people who are specialized in maybe the architecture that is existing, people who are specialized in the external view of how it needs to be tested or how it needs to integrate with other pieces. Definitely in the foreseeable future, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the distinction that I want to make is that I think if you had the two pizza team or one team, you generally worked on sort of like one sort of major feature at a time. And now I feel you just need less people to work on one feature at a time. So if you have like 8 people on a team, there really is no reason why they can't be working on 3 different features at the same time because you have that much sort of developer capacity. So when we talk about team sizes, it's almost like, as I'm thinking through this, it's almost like we're talking about how many people do you need effectively to work on one particular feature. It could be as little as 1, but I just don't see how
it could be as little as 0 potentially.
well, Cheesy's already going all Jeff Bezos on us and firing us on the spot. We don't need 3 people to run this podcast either, Cheesy. You don't see me like kicking you out. Okay.
0 pizza teams.
No, so what I'm saying is that I think if you think in terms of how many people do you need to develop a feature, I think that the answer to that has changed. Because you may not need a dedicated UI developer to develop a feature because your AIs are so good at developing UIs. You may not need a specialist sort of like CQRS person because AIs understand how to do that. So just when you think about it in terms of like feature development, I just don't see. I just find an 8-person team working on one feature. You might just be running into each other more than helping each other.
Yeah, that would be the case. I'd say so.
I completely agree. So one of the things that is being talked about a lot right now is that, they're not talking about developers anymore. They're talking about number of agents, right? Because, in some places, developers are running multiple agents now in parallel to handle, to chew up the tasks of a feature faster. But how do you orchestrate those? How do they coordinate? How do they know what to grab next? How do they know what's blocking and such? And there are a couple of different models that people are taking right now. One is the completely hands-off model where there's things like Steve Aggie's beads there, where it literally just creates a list of 200 tasks, and the agents just chew through them one after the other with no human interaction. But then there's also this corporate-y type thing, and I think you kicked it off with the corporate-y mindset where a lot of companies aren't really comfortable with not having humans involved. They want humans involved in different parts of, at least before development to kind of sort of review what's going to be built. And then after development to kind of review the code, if nothing else, and so, but I think even those roles are going to be far from traditional. I mean, reviewing ahead of time, I don't think we're going to have people writing requirements anymore. I don't think we're going to have people writing, the whole concept of user stories has to go out the window because, I don't know if you guys have heard about, the discussions around AI UX, but the concept of user stories doesn't necessarily deliver to the agents what they need to do their work effectively. So you're going to have to use, models to build out the requirements. You're going to have to use models to kind of create that backlog, if you will. So, but someone needs to take a glance at it. And then on the back end, I'm still a little unsure of what we're doing other than just give somebody a comfort zone, maybe some auditability tracing or something like that somebody has put their eye on it. But they're becoming less and less of a reason for that now.
Well,
before I get to you, I just want to ask you a question. Like the way you're speaking, it's almost like because I still think we need sort of human intervention to review code, and I don't think I'm not there where I can take AI code and just sort of commit it without a review. I have done that out of kind of laziness / being in a hurry, and I've generally sort of paid the price. Could you just, before I get to Hino, could you just double click on that a little?
So some teams that I was working with, they found that they were spending far more time reviewing code than they were having the agents build the code. And they felt that was a complete bottleneck. So they went down the path of what can I add into the pipeline to kind of take care of some things. There are now AIs that do code review. For example, Jose Valem just talked about the next version of Tidewave. He's going to probably add code reviewing capabilities into it, and so I think those are the sort of things to look at, or not. I mean, I saw an interview of Steve Yagi. I mentioned his Beads project. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to take a look at that. It's only been out like 4 or 5 weeks now, but it already has more than 250 forks and over 5,000 stars in GitHub. And in an interview, he said he's never seen the code. So he vibe coded the whole thing. He's released it. He's put lots of releases out, thousands and thousands of users using it now, and he's never even looked at the code. And so I don't know. I think doing a traditional code review becomes a bottleneck very quickly. And so what do people do when bottlenecks are there? They find ways to eliminate that bottleneck. So I think that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so first to this topic, or on this topic, and then I'll come back to what I was going to say. I think people are at different stages of their comfort with AI and with allowing them to accept whatever they produce. And I think as you are kind of exploring what it produces and become comfortable with its output, become comfortable with what you need to tell it, as Cheesy is mentioning the AI UX. I kind of like that idea. I've never thought about it, but it's true. There are certain ways in which you can present your information so that the AI knows better how to deal with it. It actually produces far more predictable results. So that's really something, right? As we learn that technique, as we are embracing that new technology, we will become more comfortable and indeed be able to accept all that stuff. But I want to come back to something, because you both brought it up. And it really is all about, hang on, are we using these AI, data, LLM, and all those tools that exist today that are based upon those? Are we using that to replace specific functions that we know in our process? Or are we actually using this to rethink entirely how we develop software? Because that's what we need to do, right? And what you're referring to is specifically, well, if we are using a developer and a standard code review in the way that we have today, and testing in the way that we have it today, and we use an AI to basically replace those things, well, of course we're hitting other bottlenecks, right? Those bottlenecks need to be removed. So it does not make sense to it's good for a first step, but as soon as we are doing this, we got to dare to think a lot further and say, like, okay, hang on. What are those bottlenecks that we have because humans are involved in the entire process? And how can we now leverage AI to think about this entirely differently? And then we're no longer thinking about developers. We won't have those. We will have people who build products.
Yep. I think that the bottleneck that we run into is we're trying to take a very disruptive technology that and trying to fit it into these agile processes. So I wrote a blog post a couple of months ago about where I didn't believe that the traditional agile works at all in this new modern mode, and I completely believe that. And but yet so many companies, as they go down this path, they say, let's bring in AI, let's teach our developers to vibe code, let's get this going, but they're not as quick to tear up their process. They want to bring it into the process that exists there already, and that's where you run into these frictions. That's where you run into these tensions. These constraints really quickly surface, right? And so it's really about then rethinking those individual constraints, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. It's very disruptive. Yeah,
I think the kind of sort of the takeaway thought here is that like, I guess you both said it, is like, humans are the bottleneck. I think before we used to talk about like what part of the process is the bottleneck. Now we've changed the conversation to like, where is, like, the humans are always a bottleneck to some degree, but now they're literally the bottleneck, because the code review example really resonates with me the most, because I do find the code review process taking longer than the code writing or generation process. How that changes programming and software engineering, I think we're going to get into that over the next few years, and what methodologies work and what don't, and how TDD needs to be tweaked and all that. I think those are all going to be very interesting conversations. But yeah, humans are the bottleneck. Go ahead.
And then to come back to the topic of today, the bigger the team, the bigger the bottleneck. right? So the natural evolution is that indeed with leveraging AI in the way that we can, and not definitely all the clients that I've worked with are, right? So they're using it for code completion and small things instead of really reimagining how they deliver software. Because if you're really going to use and leverage AI in that way, the natural evolution is that the teams will shrink significantly, right? But they will even go faster.
Okay. So let's switch. You brought up something that I kind of want to dig into a little bit, is that you said that, everybody is at varying and different levels of comfort using AI. I've also seen a fair bit of sort of AI resistance or lack of trust in the in AI generated code. Now, this field is changing so quickly, so rapidly that honestly, a conversation had today or had 2 months ago is obsolete today, just because of the nature of the models and how quickly they're improving and changing. So, what is your strategy? And I'll start with Hino on this one. Like, what's your sort of, you're talking to a developer who doesn't trust AI code, or casts a suspicious eye to it because it's maybe bit him in the past. What do you say to somebody who still thinks that AI is a sort of a helper and more to be used in sort of ask and edit mode, but not as an autonomous agent doing a lot of work requiring supervision? What are the questions you might ask them? How would you approach that convo?
Well, it's quite interesting. I happened to see Cheesy this morning. I was telling him about an interview that I would do this afternoon with somebody who was considered, somebody of our clients, who was considered to be an opponent of using AI in a development environment. So I had a conversation with them this afternoon, and it turned out that they weren't at all. The only reason why they were opposing the way that AI was used in their organization was because they were a big proponent of um, basically test-driven development and understanding what the code did and making sure that the code was maintainable going forward, not ending up with code that is completely not readable. And as soon as we got to what really was creating that perception of opposition, and we were able to address those with the current technology and how the LLMs are addressing this today, that person turned around entirely, right? So it really, oftentimes, this resistance comes from a lack of understanding and a lack of education.
Of using it.
A lack of using it, yeah, exposure in general. And I've worked with others as well who had similar things, who said that they wouldn't be able to, they couldn't get it to work, or they're spending more time on doing something like this or doing something like that. And as soon as you're actually showing them how it works and showing them that you can work through it, you don't have to go beats on them right away, like what Cheesy is bringing up, because that gap is way too big. But if you're basically building that trust initially by saying, hey, let's create a plan. And I'm sure that you talked about it in the previous podcasts as well. Cheesy has a whole blog series on it as well. Let's create this plan. Let's go through it step by step. You review what the plan is. Does it really align with what you're thinking needs to be done? Letting it do one step, getting confidence that that one step is implemented well, then go to the next step and so forth. This is how you kind of building that trust. And at the same time, with this particular person, they're already going 3 times faster than they otherwise would, just by doing that. And it's definitely not going off into the beats that Cheesy is referring to. So it's really the proof is in the pudding. Show it. And take them one step at a time. Show them that the results are there. Show them how they can still keep control. Because the biggest fear, in my understanding, is, well, if I'm going to give something to this AI, do I still have control over how it's going to get implemented? Can I still guide it? Do I still end up with an application that I can maintain if something goes wrong, right? That is their biggest fear. Ending up with a black box that they have absolutely no insight in and cannot control. There's actually a tremendous amount of ways to mitigate that and making sure that the result is maintainable by a human, is readable by a human, and also ends up being something that you probably better than you could write yourself, but that you would you think you would write yourself. You would agree with what's the result.
Yeah, Cheesy, you want to add something here?
Yeah, I think you know what, I've had that before on numerous occasions. I would first of all try to understand what their experience has been to date, and talk to them about that a little bit, and often it's more of a, well, I just played with it and it produced something crappy, and in a case like that, then I might invite them, well, can I show you a little bit different way? And I would pull them in and we would, I would do a small little vibe coding session with them. I would also talk to them about how, it's really good to take small little steps up front while you're getting used to it so that, it produces something small that's easy for you to take a quick look at. If you don't like it, just revert, and and then over time you could take larger steps as you get, you know, more proficient at it and as you train the model a little bit better yourself. So, I mean, that would probably be the approach I've done. I mean, what I just did with my client is we started by running some experiments, and then we grew the experiments a little bit, and then we brought folks into like a workshop where everybody did some small little experiments, and we worked our way up to starting to try to do user stories with it. So it was kind of a gradual progression over time, and so folks who were skeptical up front didn't feel like, something was being forced down them. They were a part of that journey, part of taking those little steps and seeing those experiments. And pretty much by the time we were even ready to start doing real work, I guess I'll say, they were already convinced that it was already writing better code and better tests than
Right.
what they could
Essentially the equivalent of a code retreat, but with AI.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
And then I'll also add that I think sometimes there's a hesitancy to use it in brownfield projects or brownfield code bases, which have been around for a while. And I couldn't disagree more with that statement, because I think like one of the strengths of this is to actually clean up old code bases. Things that, oftentimes
sensitive.
we have rewritten software because the software is no longer changeable for whatever reason. I think
Yep.
this has breathed new life into that business. I don't think we need a rewrite anymore. I think the following the good old, like, hey, let the AI write some tests for existing code, then refactor the code, and and go that approach just works so well. So I would say, if you're scared of using AI on a brownfield project, don't be, because that's where it shines. I'd say even more
Look,
than greenfield.
concrete example.
Yeah.
Only yesterday. Concrete example. Only yesterday, there was a whole bunch of. I was looking into a new application, and a whole bunch of repositories were handed to me. I was like, okay, hang on. How do I start with this? Just load it in and say, generate me some documentation to explain how these different repositories are hanging together. A whole bunch of different things. Maybe I had like 3 lines of prompt, and I got, in no time, in a few minutes, I got a clear understanding what every repository's responsibility was, how they communicated with the others, what they did, and so forth, what components would be existing. One of the challenges in this particular project was that we didn't really know what was implemented and what was not. So I tried, okay, maybe the prompt can figure it out, or the LLM can figure it out. So I asked it something else, and it came up with a list of all the things that were mocked versus all the things that were implemented. And I immediately got an insight in how far the project actually was. So I went back. I just wanted to kind of verify it. I went back to the main developer, who would be the only one who kind of knows. And I said to him, and I said, "Is this accurate?" And so like, yeah, this is pretty accurate. There's this minor change here, but for the rest, it's all pretty accurate. So it took me like less than 10 minutes to come up with a really deep understanding of what the status was and how all these pieces fit together. I consider this legacy code, right? So or a brownfield project. You can totally use it for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I will throw out one caveat though, especially if the code is very brown, let's say. You you have to be careful.
Thanks for the
Okay?
graphic.
In that I think it's important to follow the same rigor, the same process that you would if you were going to do it on your own. And I can give you a good example. So we went out to Sonar and found the like absolute worst, horrible, nasty, nasty code. And this young guy said, "Oh, I want to refactor this." I said, "Okay, great." So he got started, and I came back 2 hours later, and he was cussing at the model. He was typing, and angry, and things were broken, things weren't compiling, tests were failing, and everything else like that. And I said to him, "Well, if you're going to refactor this yourself, would you go in and just start ripping apart, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lines of spaghetti messy code? You wouldn't, right? So I made him delete everything that was there. And instead, we focused in on the worst part. And I simply said, extract these into logical methods, public methods, and put them on a new class called this. It did it, no problem. That was a very simple thing to do. Obviously, there was no test but now I had, 25 or so small public methods that were anywhere from like 3 lines to like 20 lines of code. And now I said, now write tests for all of those new public methods. And obviously, it was very, very capable of doing that. And only then did I say, okay, now refactor this thing. And it came up with a beautiful design. But the thing is that I had to take the approach that I would have done. If I were going to do this, that's exactly what I would have done. Is I would say, I'd want to get the parts I'm going to change. I want to get it under test. Oh God, I got this 330 line, method. I can't get that under test. Let me start to pull that out. And then in like 20 and in like 30 minutes, probably, we had the test there, and we were able to do a really nice clean refactor. And again, Brownfield, take the same approach that you would to have the LLM go down the same path that you would have done. That's how I've been more successful, and I've worked in plenty of legacy code already with this thing. So
Okay, so
It's all about
you want to add
context
something
window,
here?
right? Yeah, it's all about the context window. It's the same as a cognitive load for us, right? When you're looking at a project like this, your cognitive load, if you want to refactor the entire thing, is insane. You can't handle that normally, right? The same thing is true with it's called context window in an AI. The same thing is absolutely true. There is a limit to that. Even
I'd bubble it up and make the same comment I think I made last time, is that I think the skill that software engineers need to have is problem decomposition. And that's the same thing as managing your context window, right? I mean, I'm sure at some point the context windows will increase and all that. But the idea of problem decomposition is I think central to being a good developer now. If the cheesiest example is a good one, right? You could go ahead and take a big bang approach to that, and that's going to fail, and you're going to waste a lot of time, get frustrated, waste your tokens. But if you're able to actually break this down into sort of decompose the problem into things that the AI is good at, then A, it's not that hard, and B, you're gonna get good results. So I just want to switch to, I think we're 28 minutes in, but I do want to cover like one more topic here. I'm right now developing agents myself, trying to go against some business data I have. I posted a couple of screenshots in the group chat, and you brought up testing earlier, Cheesy, and I kind of want to get your both opinion on how do we test agents, whether the agent is doing the right thing. And, because AIs are obviously non-deterministic, you cannot, you can say the exact same thing to the prompt twice and get different results, even if your context is clean, right? And so that's just one of the things it does. And I found myself a little struggling on how to actually write automated tests for an agent, and I still haven't done it. So I am, before I start the manual QA is back trend, I do want to get your opinion on how do you go about testing non-deterministic agents? Because I've been doing it a lot of exploratory testing, a lot of manual testing, really playing with it. There hasn't been I obviously automated sort of the internals of the code, but in terms of the UI facing stuff, it remains sort of a mystery to me. So any tips there?
I personally not done it before, so this is just my speculation. Then at this point, or my questioning you, how do you know what's right or wrong? You ask it twice and you're going to get 2 different answers. Which one of those is right and which one of those is
but
wrong?
I
If
do
you
have a
can't
sense.
programmatically tell that, then there's no way to test it. Then you just have to let it grow.
Right. Exactly. Like for example, if I ask the AI, who was my top customer last year, right? and the answer comes back, it was Bill Smith with $40, I know that's wrong, right? I don't have to even calculate the 40. I just know it's wrong. So like that's my point, is that you sort of need human intervention right now to test agents. Your thoughts on this?
Look, I haven't done it, but same as Cheesy, and I'm doing the same thing as what you're doing, Zerari, and that's a lot of exploratory testing and seeing if these things that come back are really meaningful. An idea that I would have is, hey, have you tried an LLM and ask it like, hey, can you write me a couple of test this agent and see where it comes
I
out?
did. It didn't know what it was doing.
Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah,
I haven't.
yeah.
I haven't tried
But it made a good attempt.
yeah,
like
but
for example, like
so what you're explaining though, that particular test that you're explaining, that would be something that you could verify though, right? That's
so
reproducible.
here's the thing, I can definitely write tests for the tool that produces those results, but I cannot write an integration test with also factors in the LLM response. And obviously mocking the LLM response would be pointless. You're not testing anything then. So I'm not saying there's a solution right now. I'm just saying it's a problem which is there to be solved. And right now, I don't see a crystal clear solution there.
Right. Yeah.
We're 30 minutes in. Why don't we wrap it up? Unless anybody has any other topic.
There's got to be irrelevant to 2 months from now, so we better wrap it up.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So as a final sort of like walk off question, right? Okay, I'm just going to go around. I'll go Hino first, and then Cheesy. Your development workflow with AI, your IDE, your agent, agents. Let's start with you. Like what your setup is right now, so maybe we can get an idea on what you're doing.
I have two, so I'm still married to IntelliJ, and I'm working with the Claude agent in there. I have a whole bunch of instruction files to essentially work in the way that I kind of want to. It keeps plans for me, and those plans are not part of my repository. So I kind of have a change list of what is happening in my app. So that's one side. And for all new projects, I now use anti-gravity with Google integrated, obviously. It's been out for about 2 weeks, and it kind of blows me away. And I think I might replace my IntelliJ with this going forward. It's doing what it needs to do for me, and it actually is doing pretty much out of the box what I set up IntelliJ to do for me.
Cheesy.
But in my workflow, sorry, I didn't really answer that. So I let it create plans, and I go through it in chunks, initially small, but these chunks become bigger and bigger and bigger as I trust the LLM to do what it does.
Cheesy.
Okay, so for me, I mean, the IDE is becoming very insignificant anymore, but I do use Windsurf for my IDE. I have the Claude plugin that I use. I'm building a lot of Elixir right now, and I'm using Tidewave and really, really enjoying that quite a bit. I really like that integration. Workflow, I'm actually trying to experiment and trying to solve some challenges in the workflow space. So anyone who's following my blog, you know that I used to create these plans with the LLM. I still do, but what I've discovered by asking the LLM is that, the way that we're feeding requirements or tasks to them is far from the most viable for them. It's not how they would prefer to see it. So I started asking the questions around, well, how can I deliver tasks to you in such a way that it becomes easier for you to work? That's the whole AI UX, building things for AI. And believe it or not, it came up with some very different answers than what I thought. So I've been experimenting quite a bit with that. Also experimenting with kind of workflows on the front end that can feed multiple agents simultaneously, whether it be, a single developer with multiple agents running, or let's say a group of developers where the developers don't even have to necessarily worry about or select what's the next thing, but that the agent can kind of do it by itself, with some guidance. And so I'm playing with those workflows right now. That's an area where I'm focusing a lot, and I'm trying to build out some tools to help in that area right now.
Yeah. So I've run through IntelliJ and Cursor, and even the Amazon one I tried. I think I finally landed up with the Z IDE, which has some pretty good Elixir support, super fast, fires up really quickly. very customizable. I use their AIs for mostly autocomplete and minor tasks, but for the big ones, I use Claude Code in the terminal. That's giving me the best results, and specifically, the Claude Skills feature is something that I really like. It's really great at managing the context window. So if you don't know what that is, just as an example, like yesterday I was developing something like which loads on the page asynchronously. So it runs it in a separate process, and when it's done, the live view knows about it and renders it. So at the end of the process, at the end of the work, I just said, "Hey, write a skill for asynchronous loading of objects." So then it creates a file in the Claude Skills folder. So next time I give it a prompt like, "Hey, load this asynchronously," it knows how to manage the context window and read that skill. Same with if you're developing like a UI component. So so you maybe have certain rules for UI components. So it's all AI generated, but the Claude Skills feature has been great. I did give up on Cursor after a while, and opted just for Claude. And the Z AI is pretty good. I have been getting into Tidewave a little bit. I tried it when it first came out, didn't get great results. But Cheesy, after talking to you, you've been a big fan of it, so I might get back into it.
So early on, it was running as an MCP, but it no longer does that. So
Yeah.
it now runs as an executable, talking directly to Claude. It will actually reduce the number of dollars you pay to Anthropic by a noticeable amount. And by God, they're driving some really nice features into it. Hands off to those guys down in Brazil. They're doing a great job.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the next Elixir EU Con, which I'll be in Spain for. So that should be fun.
Ooh.
So thanks, thanks, Cheesy. Thank you, listener, for tuning in, and we'll see you again whenever next time is. Goodbye.
Bye.